Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Inner Spark, where stories ignite hearts, inspire minds, and remind us of the power within. Today's story will take you on an emotional journey, one that shows how a single teacher's lesson can change a person's entire life. This story follows Scott Miller, a lost teenager who nearly gave up on himself until a teacher's unexpected lesson turned his entire life around. Through heartbreak, failure, and a twist of fate, he discovers the true meaning of belief and second chances. Before we dive deep, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Inner Spark, and hit the bell icon, because you never know which story might light the fire inside you next. Scott Miller sat in the last row of his classroom, staring out of the window while the teacher's voice faded into background noise. His notebooks were empty, his heart heavier than his bag, and his grades slipping faster than anyone could notice. At 16, life already felt like a lost cause. His father had left 2 years ago, and his mother worked double shifts just to keep the lights on. Teachers had labeled him lazy or unfocused, but no one ever asked why. That day, his English teacher, Mr. Parker, called his name, but Scott didn't answer. He didn't care. He was too busy wondering why life always felt unfair. That single moment was about to change everything. He just didn't know it yet. After class, Mr. Parker stopped Scott by the door. His tone wasn't harsh, but calm, the kind that made you listen even when you didn't want to. "Scott, I know you're struggling, but I also know you're capable of more," he said. Scott wanted to roll his eyes, but something in Mr. Parker's eyes stopped him. It wasn't pity, it was belief. "Meet me after school," the teacher said. "I have something to show you." Scott almost didn't go, but curiosity got the better of him. That decision, small as it seemed, was the first step toward a transformation he never expected. The classroom after hours was different, quiet, with the smell of chalk and old books filling the air. Mr. Parker handed Scott a short story titled "The Boy Who Forgot to Try." It was about a young man who gave up too soon and lost everything, only to realize his true strength came from his lowest moments. "Read it," Mr. Parker said, and then walked out. Scott sat alone, reading line by line, his eyes stinging as he saw himself reflected in every word. For the first time in years, something cracked open inside him, a feeling he thought he'd lost: hope. The next day, Scott couldn't stop thinking about that story. It haunted him in class, followed him home, and kept him awake that night. He found himself wanting to prove, if only to himself, that he wasn't that boy who forgot to try. The next morning, he arrived early to school, shocking even his classmates. Mr. Parker smiled when he saw him. "Ready to start?" he asked. Scott nodded quietly. It was the first yes he had given a life in a long time. Weeks went by, and Scott began to change, slowly but surely. He stayed after class, asked questions, and even helped others with essays. But life has a way of testing new strength. One afternoon, Scott came home to find his mother crying. She had lost her job. The weight of survival fell once again on his young shoulders. Old habits whispered in his ear, "Give up, it's pointless." He skipped school for 3 days, hiding from everything. But Mr. Parker noticed and went looking for him. When Mr. Parker found Scott sitting on a park bench, drenched from rain, he didn't scold him. He simply sat beside him. "You don't have to face it all alone," he said softly. "Sometimes, life breaks us to show us where we're strongest." Those words sank deep. Scott realized Mr. Parker wasn't just teaching literature, he was teaching life. That night, Scott decided to fight again. He couldn't fix everything, but he could start somewhere, even if it was just by showing up. Scott returned to school, tired but determined. Mr. Parker greeted him with a book and said, "This one's tougher, like life. Let's read it together." They began meeting every day after class. Over time, those sessions became more than lessons. They became therapy, a safe space where Scott rediscovered himself. But then came another twist. Mr. Parker announced he'd be leaving the school soon due to budget cuts. Scott's world crumbled again. "Not again," he whispered. But this time, he didn't run. On Mr. Parker's last day, Scott handed him a letter. It read, "You didn't just teach me words, sir. You taught me worth." Mr. Parker smiled, eyes glistening. "Promise me one thing," he said. "Pass it on someday." Be the person who believes when others don't. Scott nodded, swallowing back tears. It felt like losing a friend, a mentor, a lifeline. But inside, a spark had been lit, and this time he was determined not to let it die. Months passed, and Scott worked harder than ever. He balanced part-time work with studies, often surviving on little sleep but endless determination. When the exam results came, he passed, not with top grades, but with pride. For him, that was victory. He carried Mr. Parker's lesson like an invisible armor: belief, discipline, and resilience. But life had one more twist waiting just around the corner. Years later, Scott enrolled in university with a dream of becoming a teacher himself. But tragedy struck again. His mother fell seriously ill, and medical bills piled up. Scott had to drop out and work full-time. Nights became heavy, and the dream began to fade. One night, while cleaning an office, he found a framed quote on a desk. "The best teachers are those who show us how strong we already are." His eyes welled up. That quote reignited his purpose. He began teaching children at a local community center, unpaid, just pure passion. The kids were from broken homes, struggling just like he once had. He told them stories, shared lessons, and believed in them the way Mr. Parker once believed in him. The impact was quiet but powerful. One of his students, a shy girl named Lily, reminded him of his younger self. She never spoke, never smiled, until one day, Scott gave her a story to read. The next day, Lily handed him a note. "I believe I can now." Scott froze, holding the paper like treasure. In that moment, he realized he had become Mr. Parker to someone else. Life had come full circle. But fate had another turn planned. An email arrived that evening from his old school. They wanted him to apply for a teaching position. Destiny was calling again. When Scott returned to his old school for the interview, memories flooded back. The corridors, the classrooms, even the smell of chalk felt like time travel. He noticed Mr. Parker's old classroom door slightly open. Inside, the desk was still there, but older, worn, waiting. He sat there silently for a moment and whispered, "I made it, sir." Tears rolled down his face, not of sadness but gratitude. He got the job. His first day as Mr. Miller was surreal. Standing in front of students who reminded him of himself, he said, "Everyone in this room matters. Even if no one has told you that lately, I just did." The class was silent, some students unsure how to react. But Scott knew. It started with words, just like it did for him. The cycle of belief had begun again. As weeks went on, Scott noticed one boy in particular, Jamie, a quiet kid who often looked lost. Something about him felt familiar. Scott reached out, offering help after class, but Jamie brushed it off. Still, Scott didn't give up. Sometimes, the quiet ones need to be heard the most, he reminded himself. He wrote Jamie a personal note. "You're not invisible." He left it on his desk without signing it. The next day, Jamie waited after class. "Was that note from you, sir?" he asked. Scott smiled. "Maybe. Did it help?" Jamie nodded, eyes glassy. That was all Scott needed. He knew then. Every pain, every setback, every broken moment from his past had led him to this. Teaching wasn't just his job. It was his purpose. But the final twist was yet to come. Years later, at a school event, a guest speaker walked onto the stage, an elderly man, frail but smiling. Scott's breath caught when he realized who it was, Mr. Parker. Time had changed him, but the kindness in his eyes was the same. "I'd like to introduce one of my former students," Mr. Parker said, pointing at Scott. "He's proof that one lesson can change a life." The crowd clapped. Scott's heart was full. After the speech, Scott hugged Mr. Parker tightly. "You changed everything for me," he whispered. Mr. Parker smiled. "No, Scott, you did. I just handed you the mirror." That moment sealed everything. The student had become the teacher. The circle of belief was complete, and the lesson eternal. Sometimes the greatest gift a teacher can give isn't knowledge, but belief. Years later, Scott retired, leaving behind hundreds of students who loved and respected him. Many visited, bringing letters and stories about how his words had saved them. He kept a box labeled "Lives Touched," filled with those notes. Every time he felt uncertain, he opened it, and remembered the ripple effect of one person's faith. He often whispered, "Thank you, Mr. Parker," whenever he read them. One evening, as the sun set, Scott stood in the same classroom where it all began, now quiet, peaceful. He placed a small framed quote on the desk. "Believe in them, even when they don't believe in themselves." It was dedicated to Mr. Parker. As he turned off the lights, he smiled, knowing that somewhere another student would walk in tomorrow, lost and hopeless, and find a new spark waiting. This story reminds us that one moment of kindness can echo through generations. A teacher's lesson isn't always about books or exams. Sometimes it's about belief, compassion, and second chances. Because when you light someone's inner spark, you help them light the world. Thank you for watching Inner Spark. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.